My name's Hutch, I'm a gaming sex icon, and I've got some new merch. Check the top of the description if you're interested in that. Today's Friday, which means it's another Quality Time with Hutch video. For this one, I decided to reach out to Jack from MLG, otherwise known as CouRageJD. Super nice guy, super funny, super entertaining streams, and I wanted to know his story, so I invited him to come on to let me interview him for a little bit, and he agreed. Next week is going to feature Terrorizer. If you can think of anybody else that you want me to interview, leave a suggestion in the comments below, and I'll do my best to procure the guests that you guys ask for. Sit back, relax, enjoy the video, have a good weekend. I'll talk to you guys soon. All right, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right into this thing.
I'm ready.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Quality Time with Hutch. And since you and I played against each other just last night, Jack, I thought it would be a good time to have you come on and get to know you a little bit. Maybe have a little bonding time.
Oh, this is a dream come true. Thank you for having me, and this will be a lot of fun.
So why don't you introduce yourself to people? I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't know who you were, but just in case, why don't you speak a little bit about what you do in this industry?
Absolutely. I actually am a Call of Duty on-air talent, mainly caster and stage host for the Call of Duty World League, and I work full-time under the Activision Blizzard Media Networks brand of MLG, Major League Gaming, as a creative producer. And then I also do streaming, a little bit of YouTube once every few weeks, I think, in Call of Duty, and that's really my main focus.
Well, to be honest with you, I usually write out some questions ahead of time, but because this thing came together so fast, I'm going into this one totally blind. But
let's do it.
You seem to be a pretty skilled orator and a good conversationalist, so I'm not too worried about this.
I thankfully get paid to do this for a living, so this will be easy.
So my first question that just popped into my head is, don't you get nervous as shit doing that, or do you? I would be terrified casting matches like that because I can't do it well. I think would be the first reason. But like the first time that you got into it, were you just nervous as hell, or did you feel like this was a natural fit? Because it seems like with you seem like such a natural fit for that job. You make that job look easy.
Thank you. No, it was something that really, the first opportunity I had to be an on-camera talent for MLG was actually a day where Puckett, if you know Chris Puckett, legendary MLG on-air talent, was actually going to be out sick for a day when they were doing their daily show, and they were going to cancel it. And I actually went up to the producer as just a video intern who wasn't supposed to be on camera and said, I think I can do this. I think this is something that I can handle. And they let me actually do the hosting for that day, and then I hosted the show the next 40 times in a row with Chris. So it was somewhere I just felt the confidence from the first time I was able to get on camera, and it's the one thing in life that I can genuinely say that I felt like it was a natural fit for me from the start.
They don't have like casting school. Like you can't go to college to become a caster. It seems to be one of those positions where you have to sort of get mentored in or have an incredible amount of just natural skill doing that. How much of it would you say is well, I guess it's a two-pronged question. How much of your presence when you're online or when you're doing this casting stuff would you say is natural talent, and how much is it you practicing and crafting or honing your craft? And I guess my follow-up question would be, do you spend a lot of time practicing for this kind of stuff, or at this point are you pretty confident in your ability to just go in there and wing it?
So I think the best way to start that is practicing the casting aspect at this point isn't really something that I do as much as I did in the very beginning. Now it's a lot of listening back to how I sounded at recent events. For example, there's some times where a commentator will just get hung up on a word. Let's say the word's incredible. And for some reason during an event weekend, I'll use that 10 times more often than previous weekends. And I'll get tweets saying, Jack, what are you doing? Why is every play incredible? And then I'll go back and listen and be like, bro, I have to watch out for that. It's called a crutch word for casters. I could almost name them for every codcaster of what they say. So really, I just watch out for little techniques like that. Overhyping. I'm a very hyped caster. There are times where I'll get an energy drink in me, get too overhyped for little plays. And at that point, the big plays, when they happen, seem less hyped to the viewer because I'm at full momentum the whole time, and it kind of diminishes over time. The big thing is in the beginning is learning what your identity is. The number one lesson I got was, again, from Chris Puckett. He said, Jack, if you're going to go down the humor route, 50% of people will love it, 50% of people will hate it. And I did too much humor in the beginning, then almost wiped out all my humor and lost my identity. And then I kind of found a middle ground where people know me for that funny side, but when it comes down to it, when the match is serious, when the game needs to be broken down, I can do it enough to still fill both roles. Wow, and you just need to accept that not everyone's going to love you.
That's interesting to hear that you went through like different phases as a caster. I never would have thought that that was a thing, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most embarrassed you've ever been doing this job? Like, what's the biggest mess up that you can think of in your mind?
I think the most embarrassing thing for me wasn't even on broadcast, but it was actually at Call of Duty XP this past year. I was given the great honor of being the one to introduce Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa before they came on. And it's kind of funny. I was so excited. I was more excited for this than almost anything that weekend. And it got to a point where...
You weren't nervous?
I was actually a little bit nervous for this, yes, because a lot of the fans that were there weren't there for competitive Call of Duty. Well, they were there to enjoy the event, which competitive Call of Duty was about, but a lot of them were there to see Snoop Dogg and Wiz, which I get. So instead of me going out and having, let's say, 95% of the crowd know me and have an understanding of how I am as a person and how I'd like to interact with the community, instead, let's say at this, it was 20%. So I'm walking out there. They think I'm going to introduce Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa, and they're already 30 minutes late because there were some certain stage things they had to fix. There were some certain things. So I had gone out once, twice, 3 times. And on the 3rd time, when I finally went to introduce them, I got the loudest boo because they were like, we're sick of this guy. This guy's come out and let us down every time. And there were all these new faces. And then here I am going out and just completely ruining their night.
That's brutal. I would have a panic attack and freak out and probably quit on the spot, and someone else would have to fill in for me.
Trust me, I thought about it in that moment.
I get so nervous talking to fucking celebrities, you know what I mean? Which is like sometimes if I'm at events and stuff like that and people walk up to me and ask for my autograph or picture or whatever, I can tell that they're nervous. I get just as nervous, if not more nervous. In fact, I tend to avoid speaking to celebrities as much as I can, just because it's like, I don't know why. Just for me, it's such a nerve-wracking experience. But you sound like, I mean, would there be anybody that you had to interview where you'd be like, there's no way I can do this? Or do you, at this point, are you pretty confident that you could interview just about anybody?
Yeah, I will say, ironically enough, I am most confident in any of my abilities at handling interviews. One of my first ever on-camera interviews was Nade Shot at the MLG Columbus Open for Advanced Warfare in 2014. And obviously Nade Shot, the biggest Call of Duty competitive player ever. And I just got thrown into it. And I was like, let's do it. And I was nervous for the countdown in my ear from my director going, Jack, 5, 4, 3, 2. And I knew it was coming to me. And then the second I started talking, the second we got into the interview, I just felt great. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I love interviewing because it helps bring the person. My goal in interviews is to make the competitor go from just the guy trying to win to a more personable level, to see a side that maybe certain fans of competitive, not of that team, but of competitive in general, don't get to see of that player because all they know them for is the guy that's beating my favorite team.
Yeah.
Instead, bring them down to a personal level, tell that story of how they got to this point, something that helps the people at home understand who they really are as a person, and maybe they earn a few new fans that day. That's why I love the magnified pieces we had done for the last couple of Call of Duty events.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. It almost like if you're a viewer, it adds a little element to the storyline. You know what I mean? If you know the background of a certain player, maybe he had some tragedy happen a year ago or something like that, and he's on an underdog team, all of a sudden the crowd's rooting for him because they see him on for more than just a player in that moment.
Yeah, the FaZe Optic rivalry is one of the biggest rivalries in console esports, obviously, and many people don't know that Enable, the player for FaZe, lost a majority of his aiming thumb in a exercise bike accident when he was just a year and a half old. So here was one of the most talented FPS players of all time on console, been competing for half of his life. And many of these people that are diehard Optic fans who are rooting so against him saw the video that was made about his story, about how he got to this point, about how he plays on the biggest stage with only the nub for his right aiming thumb. And many of those people are like, wow, you know what? I gained a lot of respect for Enable today. I'll root for him when he's not facing out.
Whoa. Back up a second. Hold on a second. His actual thumb is mostly...
You didn't know this?
No, I didn't know that.
See? Yes, if you can go look up online, Enable, his right thumb, the equivalent that I tell people is where your big kind of knuckle is at the bottom of your finger, of your thumb.
Yeah.
Just grab that, and that's kind of the nub that he plays with.
Wow.
From the middle and up, it's basically, even from the bottom up, it's basically all gone. Yeah. And he aims with that. It's not his sprint thumb, it's his aiming thumb.
That's crazy. I did not know that. Wow. Okay. Well, here, let me switch gears a little bit here. You're kind of a young guy here. How old are you again?
I turn actually 23 in 10 days, April 23rd.
Oh my God. And you've been doing this casting thing for how many years now? A couple of years at least, right?
Yeah, I started when I was 20. And my first ever event was November of 2014. So 2.5 years now.
Jeez, man, you got your foot in the door fast, huh?
Yeah, I honestly got I really was blessed, and I'm so happy to. It's such an honor to even be in this position, because I was a huge fan of you and the rest of all these people 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, to now be playing against you, hanging out with you at events, all that stuff. It's like it's surreal to me. I feel like I'm in a dream.
Yeah, you got in fast, man. That's and where did you grow up? Like, what area in the States did you grow up?
So my big opportunity came when I got an internship at MLG in New York City, and a large part of why that was possible was I live in North Jersey, about 6 miles outside the city, so I was able to commute each day.
Yeah.
My sophomore year, or my sophomore summer of college, to be able to go to my MLG internship, which was my first time.
Did you get Did you get a bachelor's or anything like that?
Well, ironically enough, when I left school mid-senior year to pursue and take a quote-unquote risk or a leap to move across the country last year to LA to pursue the COD World League the first year for Black Ops 3. I was 17 credits away.
Wow.
Worked with the dean, worked with the president. Wound up getting that down to 5 after taking an online class, getting internship credit, doing something else. And then currently right now, I'm enrolled in 2 online 3-credit courses to graduate. I walk May 26th. So
let me guess your degree. So would it be something to do with broadcasting?
Yes.
Okay, so what I don't know anything about the Constitution.
That's fine. My degree itself will be in electronic media and film.
Oh,
so
okay.
It kind of fits everything.
So did you know someone at MLG that like 90% of the people that get their jobs somewhere is because they got an in from a buddy or a family member or something like
Absolutely.
that? Did you know someone that was working there at the time that put in a good word for you, or was it just
You'll actually get a kick out of this. Long story short, Halo, I was a big fan of it back in 2007, went to my first MLG event in 2009. Halo started to die out, as we all know, kind of near 2011, 2012. StarCraft was on the rise then. So many Halo pros were switching to StarCraft to play it and just see what it was about. I was a fan of all these guys, and I had already started playing StarCraft 2 6 months prior. So they would tweet, anyone play StarCraft and want to teach me? And I would go, yeah, let's play. I'm down. They would invite me to Skype. We'd play. And as you mentioned, when you get nervous talking to people, I just treated them completely like when you talk to certain celebrities, that's how they were to me. And the first one I spoke to, I was like, I'm just going to act normal.
Yeah.
Acted normal. I think it was with Enable or Ace, the Halo pros. And I began to meet Enable, Ace, Flamesword, Walshy. You could just name half the Halo pro players was where I got to meet them from.
Yeah.
One of them was actually Puckett, the commentator. Kept a good friendship with him. A few years passed, got into college, studied media, met him at another event, and then actually wished him a happy birthday. And he was like, Jack, I know you do video stuff. I need an intern. You're near New York City. Do you want an internship?
Oh, that's awesome.
I could have said yes faster. He changed my life.
So had you done a lot, one of the biggest perks of working in this industry is traveling. Like before I got into it, the most I had ever traveled was like Hawaii and like Reno, Nevada, and like Tijuana when I was 11. And that was it. I hadn't really traveled outside of California, but then once I got in this industry, all of a sudden I was in Germany, I was in England, I was in New Zealand and Australia and a bunch of different states across the states that I never would have gotten the opportunity to go there had I not broken into this field. Had you done much traveling before this? Because you're all over the place all the time. You travel like a madman.
It's been one of the coolest parts of this job has been the travel. And to what you asked, I only really went to Florida like that's where my grandma had her condo, so we would go down there for vacation because it was free to stay at. It was a beautiful place, Sarasota. So we would go down there. That was our vacation basically every year. Outside of that, I'd never been to LA. I had never been to, any of the major cities in Texas. I'd been to Canada once. That was my only time outside this country, was outside the US, was to Canada sophomore year for a French school trip. Then next thing you know, I've been to now London 4 times, Paris, France, 3 different major Dallas cities. I mean, if you name the city, I've now been there in the U.S. It almost feels like for major ones. Obviously Orlando. You got
what about
Chicago,
Baltimore?
L.A. I went to school in Baltimore. That's where I went to Towson University.
What about Detroit?
Okay, now you're getting me on some. I haven't gotten to go to
Cleveland.
Detroit.
How about Cleveland?
On a whatchamacallit? Why can't I think of this word right now? When you're switching planes, when you're traveling someplace. Layover. Thank you. On a layover. That's the only time I've been there.
That doesn't count. In that case, I've been to Paris.
Now you're going to expose me. You definitely could expose me on that. Maybe that was an exaggeration.
So, at what point? This is a question I like to ask everybody that comes on, and your answer might be a little bit easier to pin down, because normally this is directed at people that just do YouTubing and streaming and stuff like that. But was there a specific moment for you that stuck out where you realized, okay, this is now my career, or this is now something I'm doing, where you made that transition from it being a fantasy or a dream or some kind of an aspiration or goal until finally, like, I have it. It's here. I'm this thing now.
Ooh. Wow. I mean, getting to cast events at the beginning was great, but it's kind of a running joke that people still think of me, like, people still will go, oh, Jack the Bravo caster, because that's what I was to start off. There were many talented Call of Duty casters and always have been.
Yeah.
When I started, it was always Benson, Puckett, Mr. X, Maven. You got Golden Boy, Fwiz, all of them. So coming up right towards the end of Fwiz and Golden Boy's time casting, there were still so many people that were talented casters that were obviously on the alpha stream. So my first champs, I didn't even touch the Bravo stream, I don't think. I think I did Charlie and Delta, which was 4 months into me casting. So even after doing a champs and stuff like that, it never felt like, this is going to be a career. But the big moment for me where it felt that way was when I got the job offer to truly go to Los Angeles. And in my head, that was, you know what, Jack? This here is either you take this and you say, I'm going for it. I'm going to be one of the top 4 podcasters in the world for broadcast, or I'm going to say, no, I'll just do events when they come up, still finish school, get those last bit of senior year memories and see how it goes from there. It was something where I had to make a decision, find apartments across the country, change my whole life up and get out there. And I said, you know what, this is the moment where this will truly be my career now for the future, not just for this 1 year, but I'm going to build this to a career for the future.
And you're not, where do you live now again?
Now I live in New York City. So we were there for 8 months and then we got shifted back over to New York City area.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I miss LA.
LA's, I'm about to move back, actually. I missed it too.
I saw. While it is crazy and crowded, it's beautiful. Like the weather is just addicting.
LA has this weird effect on me, and I think I'm not alone in that, where it just makes you feel like a loser if you're not out doing something like 4 nights a week.
100%.
they don't really obey the normal weekend laws in Los Angeles. Like Thursday is basically Friday in LA from my experience. But I think it's a city that's really well catered to people that are a little bit more extroverted, more social, and Anyways, I digress. So you said you grew up in New Jersey?
Yep, northern New Jersey. So Bergen County to be exact.
What were you folks like? How did they raise you up there?
Number one thing that I got from my parents was, Jack, if you get good grades, if you work hard, if you're a good person, then your free time is to do with what you'd like, as long as you're not hurting other people. So I was able to play a lot of video games when I wanted to, because I kept my honor roll. I worked after school, paid for my own car, paid for all my own stuff.
Yeah.
So my dad basically said, who am I? And my mom would say, who am I to take him away from this? If he loves it, if he's playing with his friends, if he's having fun, not hurting anybody, when he's so in line with everything else we want him to be doing.
Yeah. Do you have any siblings or anything like that?
Yeah, I have a younger sister who, ironically enough, as I'm finishing college, is going to begin the start to look at colleges. So my parents finished one cycle, and now it's time to have it happen again. And she's great. She's always I feel bad for her at times because her friends go up to her like, oh, does Jack know this people? What about Jack here? Does Jack this?
Yeah.
And a lot of people go up to her, and it's not, I'm by no means am I trying to smoke up my own rear, but in my little town, it's become known that, like, okay, Jack does this social media stuff. People in high school and middle school watch. Yeah. They tell their parents, that then spreads. And then my sister has to be asked about it. And I feel bad that, at times it's like people she doesn't see, the first thing they ask is, how's Jack doing? That's been crazy. She's a trooper with that. And I'm very lucky to have a sister that is willing to deal with some of the annoyances she gets when people just are asking about me instead of how she's actually doing.
Yeah, my old classmates from high school couldn't give a fuck less. they're not really impressed, but that's why I like it, man. When I hang out with them, it's like it definitely keeps me grounded. Definitely helps me to.
No, I will say high school friends for sure, like that. My college friends, they knew I was starting that transition, so they asked me a lot more about it. But like high school, they'll ask me for like, a couple minutes, like, how's it been? Cool. And then the rest of the night is just like when we were back in high school, which I really do love as well.
Yeah. And how do you how do you cast as well as you do, man? Like how do you did you always kind of know how to do that? Did you inadvertently practice before you even really knew that you were practicing? Like when you were playing with these pros, playing StarCraft, teaching whatever, were you just kind of working on these one-liners? Because it's one thing to be funny and it's one thing to have sort of natural charisma. It's another to be able to string together a sentence without saying a lot of ums and ahs and be able to speak really fast about what's happening in real time for like 30 seconds straight or a minute straight. That's a tough thing to do. I mean, was that something that you had to work on?
Yes, I definitely did. Watching back my first casts, a big thing, as I mentioned earlier, is watching back what you do, learning from the best. There are so many talented broadcasters in esports, but even larger than that is obviously all the sports broadcasters.
Right.
Hearing how they project themselves, hearing how they set up the tense moments, really just bring the viewer in, get them on the edge of their seat. Now being able to also work with people who are in the sports field. We had a great Fox NFL producer, director who came in and gave us some tips on how exactly he thinks we should do certain things. And the number one thing I learned from that is the air doesn't always have to be filled with your voice. And what I mean by that is, for example, Optic Gaming, great Call of Duty crowds, right? Let's say Optic clutch a big search and destroy round 11, and that crowd erupts.
Yeah.
I can go, Optic Gaming, secure the victory. Crowd erupts, and just be quiet. Let the crowd sound and the energy of the room take over the broadcast. Next time you're watching a major sports event, when a touchdown happens or a home run is hit in extra innings, and that crowd is loud, you will hear the broadcaster, I guarantee you, dip out for a minute, 2 minutes almost at times, if it's really a crazy moment, and just let the crowd and the energy of the room carry itself.
What's your favorite moment when you're, and I mean like a moment like what you're describing, like someone clutched up or some incredible play happened or some incredible upset. What I know there's probably a lot that stick out in your mind, but if you had to pick one that was kind of just the most magical, where you felt, you really felt like the energy of the crowd and you really felt like you were a part of something special in that moment. Can you think of a particular play? I mean, if you have to do a top three, you can do that too.
I mean, I would say even just from this last event, because when I do events, there's been so many now. I think I've done almost 30 plus in just the last couple of years. They kind of blur together, and the last one is the most obviously relevant in my mind. Yeah. So it would probably be the Optic Gaming E United Grand Final goes to a second best of 5. Karma in that game goes like 12-1, has some crazy clutches, and Optic 6-0 E United. So it was insane, and the crowd erupted. Optic were crowd champions, but at one point, Karma clutched like this crazy 1v2. And I'm getting ready to interview the winner and do the whole stage presence and everything. So I'm standing there right in the front, looking out at this crowd that Call of Duty crowds are only growing bigger and bigger, which is awesome to see.
Yeah,
and they're
definitely
so enthusiastic about things that this crowd erupts, and Jay, obviously your Old Men of Optic teammate, is there with the OG hype squad, as he has it, in the front row, getting lifted up by optic tubers, and people are freaking out. And it just said it to me like, oh my goodness, this just gave me chills. This is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I was always a fan of esports, even going back to when they were. I used to watch a lot of the Halo 3 events. I would do the thing where, like, this back when you had to pay for them, so you'd pay like $5 and get the weekend pass. And I didn't play Halo. I was not good at Halo, but I just remember just being in awe watching these guys play, and watching these crowd sizes just get bigger and bigger and bigger each year has really been something to marvel at. And I feel kind of privileged to be able to have witnessed it. I imagine the same is for you. To watch this thing just like your little baby just kind of slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And and it's not only that, but it's also just across esports that gets me excited, right? Because if anything in esports is successful, it proves that there's so much growth opportunity across the board, right? And with all these eyes and investors now coming into esports, and they see PC games for MOBAs grow huge with millions of viewers and these crazy prize pools, and then next thing you know, CS goes big for an FPS on PC. Then you go and you look at a game like Rocket League, which if you've been following Rocket League, that game's been expanding so rapidly.
They're getting a lot of money getting poured into Rocket League. They got some big tournaments over there.
I mean, it's just nuts to see. And then you begin to mention Call of Duty World League now, the second year of structure, $4 million prizes up for grabs, getting 3 different regions involved. You obviously have the success that we've seen from Halo and Gears of War. It's everywhere. These leagues are only growing. And the more that the fans are involved and the more that people want to see these games be played, the more money and competition and events will be poured into it. If there is a demand for it and it is profitable, it will happen.
So, is casting and being a part of this esports production, is that something that you want to stick around with for a long time? Like, is this something that you would want to still have as a career in 10 years, or is it something that, do you have another end goal? Is there some kind of a, because when you stream, you're no slouch when it comes to the Twitch viewers, man. You pull some serious numbers and got a decent amount of subscribers too, if I'm not mistaken.
I could say the same thing back to you, Big Sexy.
Well, stop.
I'm seeing you kill it out there. Thank you. That is really what it is. And I think and just to quickly touch on the Twitch thing with Call of Duty, I think what Old Men of Optic, you guys do so well is you give people a reason to watch. You guys are an established group of entertaining people that people want to see how they perform, right? You're the underdog at times. At other times,
you are underdog every game, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I didn't want to roast it too bad, but no. You obviously have the underdog factor, but then when you get in a good match, you can absolutely make it competitive, like the one we had with Pink Wall, where it's like people want to watch Call of Duty content still if it's something that is unique. People will only watch pub stomps for so long.
Yeah,
especially when the pub stomps is by you or I. While we are above average in Call of Duty, we are not Scump. No. Scump can get away with uploading pub stomps because guess what? Many people regard Scump as the best Call of Duty player in the world. So people will watch that. But when it comes down to matches, competitive stuff that people want to watch and is unique is what it's all about, which is absolutely huge.
If you were pulling consistent, just thousands and thousands of viewers every time, would you eventually want to quit casting and just focus on that, or is your heart kind of? I mean, you seem pretty attached to what you're doing over there.
I value a job in esports very highly. Right now, especially with how much it's growing, especially with the potential. Right now, I'm only working in Call of Duty. For all I know, 4 years from now, I'm the stage hype guy across 6 major titles, know, and that's and I'm freelance. For all I know, a year from now, my stream continues to grow. My YouTube out of nowhere shoots up. I figure out good content to do, and I'm making a solid living off that. And it's so lucrative that it's like, you know what? Maybe I do have to walk away from casting for a bit and do freelance there, only do the major events, and then focus full time on streaming. It was something that I really had to decide on last year when this whole transition back to New York happened.
Right.
My stream was at its peak, and I think I had like 1,100 subscribers, I think. And my YouTube was actually doing very, very well for where it was at. And I was like, wow, this could be something. Imagine if I was full-time in this and not just streaming, 3 hours a night trying to get by.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I then learned very quickly that that won't always be that way. And that kind of gave me a wake-up call where it was like I went down to, and it's not all about numbers, but, you know, I was a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, Black Ops 3 fell out of the kind of centerfold, so that kind of made a shift. Pro players weren't able to play with me as much. Some of the storylines that I'd built in my stream started to fall away.
Yeah.
And I then saw, you know, viewership go down, subs go down, and that kind of, oh gosh, back and forth, which I mean, I'm sure you've experienced on YouTube and streaming in general across all your years, it was a little bit scary for me, I have to say. And that really made me love my job of consistent salaried pay even more.
Yeah. Well, I think for me now, it's more if I see that there's some kind of a slouch in views compared to the month before or something like that, I don't really stress too much. Like, I would say I'm more treated like a problem that needs a solution, or a problem that has a solution. I just need to find it. And, you know, sometimes it takes me a week, sometimes it takes me a couple weeks, but I've managed to reinvent myself a few times in this space. And to some degree, you kind of have to. Otherwise, you might go fucking crazy. You know, I've seen it a million times with other creators, content people that do Twitch and YouTube. They might do the same thing for like 3 years. Maybe that's Minecraft, maybe that's COD, maybe that's whatever. But then eventually they will hate it. It will come to a point where they will need to do something else. And if you lose a few viewers in the process, I think it's worth it to keep your sanity and to keep going with what you enjoy doing. Now, obviously, you can't literally do whatever you want. To some degree, you're beholden to your viewers, but I do think that reinventing yourself is a good thing. So if you got pangs of anxiety when you saw little dips in your numbers or something like that, you know, I would try to treat it like a problem that has a solution, and all you got to do is just find that solution. But I imagine, I mean, just like you said, you know, one of the biggest things with streaming is like consistency. It's really tough to keep the same numbers if you stream like every day for 2 weeks and then you don't stream at all for another 2 weeks because you're traveling or something like that. That's gonna make it hard to manage. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. You know, it just takes a little.
I mean, that's been something I've always been battling, even this weekend. I mean, even from talking to you in DMs, we were setting up this call, and I was saying, originally I was going to go home tomorrow, spend Easter weekend with my family, and then I knew I was going to be traveling to Columbus, getting my stuff set up out there because we're starting the Call of Duty World League Global Pro League. But then I decided, you know what? The Black Ops 2 stuff has been so much fun. The streams have been great. I'm going to move it back to Saturday, do 2 extra streams, and then go back and spend about half the amount of time with my family. Yeah. And I'm getting back and forth and thinking, you know what, Jack? You're going to be home so little. You are home so little. People will come back and watch. You can't just, I can't keep forcing, I just can't overwork myself to just get a couple extra streams in because I have some momentum right now. Yeah. When this is a holiday weekend that happens once a year, you know, and that's even a dilemma as you're talking about that. Now we move this call up, as you said, unprepared. That's my fault because I think I moved the call 3 times in 30 minutes.
No, so. I honestly think I prefer it this way. It's like, yeah, I don't worry about it, man. I wasn't worried about it with you. With some people, if I don't know them that well, or you know, or anything, something like that, maybe I'll be a little bit more prepared. But yeah, you seem to be one of the more positive people in this space. You always got some kind of joke that you're selling. You always got a big smile on your face, and yeah, I just think you have a big future ahead of you. I want to thank you for your time, and I think we're gonna go ahead and end it there. But good luck to you, man. Good luck in this space, and I look forward to seeing what you do in the next few years, because if it's anything like the last 4 years, you got, you know, an even bigger future ahead of you. So congrats on all your success here, and I wish you all the best, pal.
Hey, Hutch, thank you so much. It truly does mean a lot coming for you, and you're somebody in the scene that I have a hell of a lot of respect for. So
I appreciate that.
I look forward to the next time we battle it out on MWR, and you can first blood me, and I'll rage because I'm trash at that game.
Yeah, no Black Ops 2, man. I can't do it. I can't.
Okay, we'll avoid that. Thanks, bud.
All right, take it easy, pal.